Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of FAQ Monday. I thought I would just be lazy and sit on my couch, answer some questions, hang out. It's right before Christmas. Happy holidays, by the way, to everyone out there. And yeah, let's just dive into some questions, shall we? Arc Unhinged from my Discord server, what's up, asked, Fluff, if you had to do all of your mix/production work with 3 cabs, what would you choose and why? What speakers would you put in them, etc.? Good question. I mean, that's pretty generous. 3 cabs. Most of my recording history, I've had a single 212. I would have 3 412s. I would have a Mesa Boogie and a Marshall, and probably another Marshall, straight Marshall, slant Marshall, oversized Mesa Boogie, rectifier cab. Rectifier cab would be stock V30s, really broken in. The second 1960 slant Marshall cab would have stock T75s. And the third Marshall cab, the straight cab, would have creambacks or greenbacks, probably creambacks though. And I feel like with that combination of cabs, I could conquer the world. Curtis Zawanda asks, for a bedroom player, if you could only pick one, what amp or setup would you recommend for an aspiring modern metal hard rock player that sounds good? I don't know if I was in my bedroom if I would pick any amp. If I was dead set on getting an amp, I would pick Rev. I would pick a Rev amp just because of the ability to direct out. And I know they're not the only manufacturers that do this now, but you can XLR out into your interface and pick any cab impulses you want and use the amplifier as more than an amp, right? But honestly, if it were me, I mean, I would be using amp sims. I would be using probably what I'm using now, a Fractal AXFX3. I would use some sort of digital processor or plugin. Everyone's taste is different. Quad Cortex. I would be using a digital solution for both expense and flexibility, right? So back in the day, you know, we had things like Line 6 pods, but what that did was it kind of trained our ears to kind of know what things sounded like out in the real world. A U67 on a 412 versus a 121 by itself, which is really, really dark because it's a ribbon microphone. It really educated an entire generation of guitarists. So, and I think that's what's happening now with Quad Cortex, Fractal. You know, kids know how a 5153 red channel sounds, for example. So if you wanted the real amplifier, you could at least approximate in your head what that sounded like. So I would do a digital solution if I were you. Any of the big processors are fantastic. Line 6 Helix, Neural DSP, Quad Cortex, Fractal AXFX, not necessarily big rack mount, but you know, even an FM3 is $700. Wonderful, wonderful units. It's a great time to be a guitar player right now. Brian Laughlin asks, what do you think of Heritage Audio? Would love to see you review something from their Elite series. Thank you very much, Brian. I love Heritage Audio. I actually have had several of their pieces over the years. I had a successor whose right channel died. I had their 2-channel microphone pre, that's basically the Neve DPX, which the only reason I don't have that anymore is because I got an actual Neve DPX. But for me, the Heritage stuff is really great bang for your buck. Low noise, dependable. I had a couple other things from them as well. At one point I tried the monitor controller. I know I've had several of their mic pre's, at least 2 successors. Oh, the successor is such a great compressor. Yeah, Heritage stuff's cool. Bryant Yaramilo, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, sir, asks how to dial in a great sounding live patch on a modeler. You know, with the modelers, there's a lot of high end, there's a lot of dynamic range. The key to having a good sounding live patch using any of the digital solutions is shaving off way more top end than you think you need to, because at volume, at gig volume, blasting through a 50,000 watt PA, the top end will take the audience's head off, and you don't want that. It's also kind of a nightmare for your sound guy as well. So what I always used to do with my own patches on the Fractal and the Helix is I used to dial in my patch how I liked it, and then I would have a split going to my in-ears, and that would be how it is, but the split going out to the front of house would have a low pass filter EQ as the last block in the signal chain, and I would take off everything above like 9K. Just take it off. It's not doing anything for anybody to hear all that noisy top end, because people need to hear cymbals and other things and keyboards and whatever your situation is. But top end, take off top end. So at normal volume, when you're sitting here playing and listening to your patch, it should sound dark and muddy. It should sound like it needs top end. It doesn't need top end. Searching for Tone asks, what is the toughest thing about being a YouTube creator you experienced over the years? Oof, good question. It can be frustrating relying on other platforms to get your stuff out to the people who want to see it, i.e. your subscribers. But really, I think long-term, the hardest part is people thinking you only do one thing or pigeonholing you. And what I mean by that is, I've actually been slowly making a transition to more of the production side of the music industry. I'm mixing a lot these days. I am also co-writing and producing bands and being in the studio and working with artists and making records. I love that. I actually might love it more than I love making YouTube videos. And, when I was doing the band, when I was doing Dragged Under, I used to get people all the time that would see me out in the wild and go, hey, what are you doing here? Or, hey, I'm your biggest fan. I've seen all your videos. You should do a band sometime. And I'd be like, yeah, this is France. I'm here playing with my band. Like, people only tend to see you with this much. They only see you doing this one part of all of the things that you do. I think that's hard. So really, the reason why you guys are seeing more mix breakdown stuff on this channel and more audio related stuff on this channel, which I will point out is something I did in the early days, is because I just love it. And I am doing more of that. I don't want to be doing YouTube full time when I'm 50. I just don't. Will I ever stop making YouTube videos? Absolutely not. I love doing this, but I hope to, transition into doing more real world stuff in addition to the videos and content that I make for people. But, YouTube has absolutely changed my life. But yeah, that's the hardest thing about doing this. Maximus Rivas asks, other than your Gibson guitars, what are your main go-tos for riffing? I don't know. See, I got a 1980 Gibson Les Paul Standard, birth year Les Paul. I love it. Honestly, these days, I'm playing mainly Music Band Stingrays and PRS. Here, hang on. I'll go get a couple. Okay, so you guys have seen this before. This is my my custom white Ernie Ball Music Man Stingray RS. Currently it has a Duncan JB in the bridge. You guys will probably see this guitar at NAMM as well. I'm also really loving this PRS Tremonti with a Seymour Duncan Black Winter in the bridge. It's just a fantastic sounding guitar, and yeah, I actually just bought that from Sweetwater. It's a regular Tremonti with an unbelievable top. But yeah, Ernie Ball Music Man and PRS generally for me these days for writing. Austin Peters asks, do we really need to use high output pickups when amps have infinite gain on tap? Wouldn't medium or low output pickups be clearer even with the gain knobs up to compensate output? If so, why are high output still so popular? That's an interesting question, Austin. There is definitely a lot of clarity and dynamic range in lower and medium output pickups. I have honestly, my own personal journey, even as of late, switching to Seymour Duncan and being able to try literally everything they have, I gravitate towards higher output pickups. Here's why I do it. I like a really high output pickup backed way off. I like what happens with a hotter pickup further away from the string as opposed to using it for just gain and volume and output. I like the compression and the clarity you can get when you back off a high gain pickup or high output pickup. But also on the amp side and the processor side, you're lowering the noise floor. The amp and the processor have to work less hard and by adding less gain. And to that end, you do get more clarity on the other side of it, if that makes sense, for me personally. Everyone's different. Everyone has their different preferences. I like a high output pickup. I like a pickup hot as hell. I really do. You know, a passive pickup, 14 to 18K, give it to me. I love it. I think the Seymour Duncan JB pickup is one of the most perfect pickups ever made. I'm also a huge fan of the Black Winter. I'm a huge fan of the Nazgul. Those are all pretty high output pickups. However, saying that, I also love the Seymour Duncan Saturday Night Special, which is like a 9K bridge pickup. So I would consider that low to medium output. You know, I definitely do not like really low output pickups in guitars, you know, like really vintage, like, you know, 4K and 5K, like, it's out of gas for me and what I play. Obviously there's applications for all things, but you know, at the end of the day, I feel like I'll get my sound no matter what anyway. But the high output pickup thing, I don't know. I just love the way they feel, I guess. Brandon Montoya asks, your go-to nail clippers? Dude, real talk. I know this is probably a joke. I do actually have, I travel a lot and I always have to have, you know, fingernail clippers in order to trim my nails when I'm playing and all that kind of stuff. I actually got these recently. I'm not kidding. They are fantastic because the clippings don't bounce all over the place. It contains the clippings. They're incredibly sharp. They're very well made. They're from Germany. And yes, for fingernail clippers, they're expensive. They're like $10. However, they're actually really, really good. Really good. I will link down below in the description if you guys want to check them out. I know that was a joke, but seriously, I'm stoked on fingernail clippers. Matthew Weeks asks, do tube types make a difference in tube amps on your experience? Matthew, thank you so much for your question. In my experience, yes. Yes, they do. However, not all tubes are created equal. Not all designs are created equal. Different designs utilize tubes in different ways. I'm speaking to internal voltages, etc., etc. And also, there are EL34s that have more warmth than a 6L6. So like, you know, you could theoretically change between tube types and sonically hear no difference. That's not the point. You know, tubes and amps are a lot like the tires on your car. If you're getting in your car and you're shooting out tires and you're going 25 miles an hour to the grocery store, you're not gonna feel or notice any difference when you turn the wheel, when you're going through the little neighborhood, and when you get to the store and you park. They're all the same when you use them like that. For me, the tubes really matter when you're really pushing them. And obviously I'm generalizing right now. I'm not talking about a particular preamp or power tube, but I will say power tubes matter sonically much less than preamp tubes. Preamp tubes, I sit here and roll all day long in certain amplifiers like my Diesel VH4, wild difference. Also, you should take an account of what that amp was designed around, right? So the 90s 2-channel rectifiers were designed around the 8th gen Chinese Shugwang tube. Now they have JJs in them and they're muddy as hell. So yes, tubes do matter. I have a tattoo of a Coke bottle, 6L6 tongue saw. I love tubes so much. However, do they matter sonically as much as something like speakers? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But for those of you who believe, tubes don't matter at all, I really, really hope more people think that, because that just means there's more tubes for me. Don't buy them. Chris Gutierrez, I am so sorry. I cannot pronounce your last name. I am so sorry, Chris, but thank you so much for your question. Chris asks, will you be attending NAMM 2025? I will be. I will be at the Marshall booth the whole time. I will be working with Marshall, a Marshall boy for NAMM 2025. My job is to hang out and show you guys all the new stuff that's coming, which is a lot and really, really cool, I promise. Please come by the Marshall booth, come find me, come hang out. We will hang out, we will play some amps. I'll have my guitars there as well. Please, please come hang out at the Marshall booth 2025 at NAMM. And finally, Zach asks, what are your top albums of 2024? Oh man. All right. Top albums of 2024. First, I have to go Billmuri, American Motorsports, probably my favorite album of the year. Real talk. Second, Home Team, Crucible of Life. Those are my boys. I'm so proud of them. And I love them. I've been long time friends with them. And I want to see them take over the world. Really. The Nothing That Is, Fit for an Autopsy. So again, my boys. I just absolutely love Fit for an Autopsy. And number 5, I would say Unpeople. Unpeople EP was actually just really genuinely incredible. Oh, I have to mention Wiltwither. The Yellow Wallpaper EP. Unbelievable. They are doing amazing stuff. I will link down below in the description if you'd like to check out all of those bands and the albums that I'm talking about. They are worth your while. And that does it for this episode of FAQ Mondays. If you have your own questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. And yeah, we'll hang out again very soon. Happy holidays, everyone. I hope everyone has a safe holiday and a happy new year. And with that, fluff out.